So joining me today is Jill Satterfield. Jill is an international mindfulness and meditation teacher. Her integration of embodied mindfulness and meditation includes somatic practices and contemplative psychology, along with 35 years of Buddhist practice and retreats. Jill leads applied embodied mindfulness trainings at UCLA's Mindfulness Awareness Research Center, was a founding faculty member of Spirit Rock Meditation Center's Mindful Yoga and Meditation Teacher Training, and is a mentor for Jack Cornfield and Tara Brach's Mindfulness Teacher Training. Jill ran the School for Compassionate Action, Mindfulness and Somatic Practices for those living with chronic pain, trauma and addictions for 11 years in New York City, and now she lives in California. So Jill, I'm thrilled to welcome you to the podcast today. It's fantastic to have you here. Just really delighted to meet you and to welcome you.
Thanks, Allison. I'm really happy to be here. We can talk about our favorite subjects.
Absolutely. All about embodiment is wonderful. So I wanted to start, my first question is really with your starting point. So what was it that sparked your own interest and dedication to understanding the mind and the body?
Pain, actually, a lot of pain. So I was in art school at the time in New York City, perfectly happy, living in my mind, in my creative mind. Didn't pay much attention to my body, didn't need to. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden had some pain that turned into chronic pain that was unremitting. Wow. And I went to various allopathic doctors at the time, all around New York City, the best that I could find. Nobody could find an organic reason for the pain. They would look at me and say, "You look fine." They ran a bunch of tests and said, "We can't find anything." And, I was a squeaky wheel. I didn't feel well. It really hurt. I kept going back. So over a period of a few years, especially being with a few doctors in particular over and over again, they started saying, we think it's in your mind. And I said, well, then what do I do about my mind? And this is back in the early 80s. And I got, some raised eyebrows, crossed eyes, shrugs, basically what amounted to a lot of pats on my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And sent away. And so I started to think, wow, what do I do about this mind that's registering all this pain? I had to drop out of school because I wasn't very well, and started on a path of trying to figure out, well, how do I work with my body? How can I improve how my body feels? And I started practicing yoga. That wasn't really helping. I mean, it was great in that it helped me with concentration. My body got very, very strong, very flexible. I took to it like a fish in water. But as far as helping with the pain, it didn't. Mm-hmm. I ended up having some surgeries. They took out various parts of my organs and glands. I was still in pain. I eventually convinced a surgeon to open me up again, and they found out that there actually was an organic reason for the discomfort, and it was part of my intestine had twisted and knotted and herniated my diaphragm and was living up by my heart. So it was actually, there was a real good reason for all the pain. This is 13 years in the making, before that was discovered. So after the surgery, they said, well, after recovery, and it was quite a brutal surgery, you'll be fine. And I wasn't. And I went to places like Yale Pain Clinic and kept trying to find reasons for the pain. And then really vowed to take care of myself and figure out this mind, even in my mind that was still registering all the pain and having trouble with the pain and feeling depressed about the pain. And I found myself on a retreat. I went to a 10-day silent retreat. The very first one I did was a Goanka Retreat. Very silent, very still, as some people know. A little bit brutal for me, who was used to moving and being active. But it was a pivotal turning point because I had to sit in the pain without moving, endlessly, going into my body. And then I had heard at the end of that retreat that there was another place nearby called IMS. And it was whispered to me basically that it was down the road, that there were different teachers, that some of them were psychologists, which piqued my interest because psychology has always been very interesting to me, that they actually had a yoga room and you could take walks in the woods, and that the food was really good. So I quickly wrote away for a pamphlet. I'm definitely dating myself. I got the pamphlet in the mail, and I went the very first chance I had. And it was just a 3-day retreat that was going to extend into a week-long, but I had only taken the time for the 3-day. Anyway, that's how I met my primary teacher. His name is Ajahn Amaro. He lives near you in London. He runs Amaravati Monastery. And I went and heard him and saw him, and it resonated with me in a way that nothing ever had. It wasn't just him and his heart and his beautiful smile and mind, but it was the teachings. It was the Buddhist teachings. And I knew I had found the right place for me to be. And then I started sitting on many retreats a year. I've sat hundreds by now, and it changed my life.
That's quite an extraordinary story, Jill, and I'm curious about this whole thing of 30. It took them 13 years to actually discover what was wrong. And I've got colleagues in the breath world who got chronic fatigue and ME and other things different to what you have, but again, this very dismissive attitude. I think by the medical profession, and that whole sense of being sent away. But in some ways, it sounds like perhaps in the end, I don't know if maybe there was some kind of gift in there for you, because that led you to finding this.
For me, it was a tremendous gift, because I was continually forced, which is a lot of what Dharma practice, Buddhist practice is, forced to go inside, to seek myself. How can I work with my mind? How can I work with my body? How do I work with the heart that's feeling, the pain of the pain, basically, the pain of the suffering, and to seek out my own direct experiences. So, I reached a point where I was being dismissed. I was being patronized. I looked okay. So of course there wasn't going to be anything wrong with me. I was happy in spite of it, which sounds a little odd, but some people probably know what I mean. And so I didn't fit into the ways in which one needs to qualify to be really taken seriously. And so I was forced to go and find my own answers. And to me, that was a gift. And I'm a little bit of a rebel and a renegade anyway. So when people were telling me you can't, I said, of course I can. And that really gave me the fodder that I needed to seek something that wasn't being told or taught in my regular culture, and world. And that was the portal that I needed. That plus imagination, I have to say, was very, very important and still is.
Tell me more about that, the imagination side of things.
Well, it was during these deep retreats, these long retreats, very, very silent, 10 days, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a little longer, that my mind would get quite quiet. And I would have these experiences where I was almost like I was in a movie sometimes. I don't know how to quite describe it. These experiences, the mind is bizarre.
It sure is.
we start entering into it, and it's almost like a drug trip sometimes. Yeah, I have taken drug trips, so I knew that sort of the symbiotic relationship of them. But anyway, you're totally fine, you're straight, and your mind is opening, your heart is opening, your body is going along for that ride, and it can be quite interesting. And surreal. And so I would have experiences of being able to, see things changing as they were changing, almost like everything was shimmering and shifting and changing. I know. Please don't judge me.
Not at all. It sounds like some of the breathwork experiences I've had. So I'm definitely not judging you on it. I love those. It's a slightly altered state of consciousness.
Very altered states. And then it would happen in my body where I felt like I could I was diving into my body, and I was able to look around. When I was young, Jacques Cousteau was on TV a lot, and he took his submarine down and he would go into the waters and with his little viewfinder, and he would see these magnificent views of fish and color and, amoebas and plankton and squids. Wow, look what's in there. And that's how I felt when I would drop into my body. It was like, wow, look in there and look in there. And sometimes it would be, quite trippy, but also sometimes it would be like, oh, well, I can spend a little time in there. And in particular with my gut, because that was the region of my body that was not working properly. I was told that area of my body was anthropomorphic, which is a really harsh thing to say to anyone. It means rock-like, or at least that's what I looked up in the dictionary at the time. I was really taken aback by that word. And when I looked at my body and I dove down in, that was a very dark place. So it had no color, it had no light. And I thought, well, maybe I need to bring back some color and some light and some movement in that area of my body. These things just came to me, I wasn't trying to make them happen. And so I would imagine, for instance, that my pelvis was this glass bowl. And I would picture, and this is where it was movie-like in a sense, it feels like you're superimposing an image, but it's coming to you quite naturally. And I imagined that I was placing all these flower petals at the bottom of the bowl. And I would try with my breath to swirl the petals around, because I was trying to breathe some life and color and movement back into my intestines. And I would say for a really long time, I couldn't picture any color at all. And my intestines weren't working. And I was told they weren't going to work again because it was part of the autonomic nervous system beyond what I could control.
Yeah.
But I had read that there were yogis and yoginis from long ago that had done these incredible things with their bodies and their minds. And I thought, well, if they did it, I'm going to try.
Cool. No, I think you're absolutely right. I love that.
What the heck? And so I kept doing it. I kept doing it, and so it's good to be stubborn, and it's good to be, a little bit rebellious and renegade. And I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And finally one day I actually saw a few little petals flower, kind of moving around. And I thought, I'm healing.
That's amazing.
And it took about 7 years. Can't be precise about this, but I re-triggered peristalsis.
Wow.
Completely freaked out.
Phenomenal.
The doctors. I'm so proud of myself.
Wow.
Completely proud of myself. Now, I did this with imagination. I did this with a variety of different practices. So imagining that my intestines were going to move again, and I meticulously would go through them. But I imagined all sorts of things in my body. Some came to me and some I superimposed, like I was describing. But it was very transformational and still is. So imagination, I think, is really important because we need to imagine what we want to become. We need to imagine the world we want to live in. We need to imagine how we want to transform. And if we can be playful about it and imagine things that aren't boxed in or the way that we might have learned before, then literally the sky is the limit. And when we dive into the portal of mind and heart, we have faith in that. We know that this is true. There is no end to what we can do when we really work with our minds.
I properly love that. And I love this image of, you've got flowers on your blouse. And I love this image of the flowers in your intestine and kind of in the glass bowl, and also that you were using your breath, because actually the breath is the one part of the autonomic nervous system that we do have some control over.
That's right.
And being able to take that and to pair it with your imagination, I think is extraordinary.
Yes, and I've continued to do that, because then flash forward, I had 4 years ago, it happened a little bit before 4 years ago, but I had heart surgery. And I'd had a virus that attacked my one of my valves.
Wow.
And it burned it away, actually. And so practice showed up for me in incredible ways, because I was having heart failure for 2 years before I had the surgery. But the recovery process was really interesting because it was another opportunity for me at this point, because I've been practicing so long. Okay, so here we are. I don't like it, but this is my circumstance, one more time, learning through the body. This is what I have. And the recovery process was really beautiful in a sense, because it was painful. It was not fun, but I knew that my breath especially was what my heart needed to feel and hear.
Yeah.
And so I would ask the nurses to shut the door when I finally got, into a private room. And I spent hours and hours and hours just breathing lightly into my heart. And when I came home, I did the same thing. And I was so grateful to know the breath as a friend and as an ally and as a transformational property that I didn't question at all. That it was there for me, and it was really a big difference. And yeah, so I'm a firm believer.
Yeah. And just, I think it's fascinating seeing how you've carried that with you right from the beginning of your journey through to even now, but also that sense of accepting what's the opportunity that what can I learn from here? I may not like the circumstances I'm in.
Right.
We're in a crazy world at the moment. We don't like the circumstances we're in.
Oh, and you don't have to.
Absolutely, but we can use it as an opportunity to learn. And I love that approach to kind of think about, well, okay, let's work with what I've got.
Right, exactly.